What's going on, old school scares? Welcome back to the channel, and today we have our next review, and it's going to be the 25th anniversary of Scream, which came out in 1996 from Wes Craven, right? This was a game changer in the horror movie genre, and this was interesting for me. I just did a review not too long ago when we covered the 40th anniversary of The Evil Dead, and that was pretty exciting for me, and I've had a lot of opportunities to see older movies in the theater that I didn't get to see when they first came around. Things like Jaws, the Friday the 13th, the original, Halloween, The Shining, Psycho, The Exorcist, even The Evil Dead I had never seen when it first came out. I was too young. But this was the first one for me in the horror genre. I've seen Jurassic Park and all the different iterations that have come out, the 20th, and how many anniversaries we've had. I've seen every version of that. But to go back in the horror genre and see Scream from 1996, I'm gonna be honest, it made me feel a little old. I remember the movie. I remember the movie very well. I saw it in an AMC theater 25 years ago, and they were doing the 25th anniversary only in the AMC theater, so I just saw it again. And it was pretty cool, right? My wife and I have been together for like 27 years. This was a movie we saw when we started dating. We were a couple years into our relationship, and she wasn't a big horror fan, and she went and saw this with me. And I remember how iconic this movie was at the time. I think back to the slasher genre when this came out, and it was a dying genre, right? Like, it just wasn't doing very well. You had the end of the Halloween and the Friday the 13th movies with diminishing returns all along. I can't even think of the names of the Halloween movies towards the end of the franchise. It was so bad. You had Jason X. What was interesting is you had Wes Craven come back with his New Nightmare in '94, which was 2 years before this, which was really a great return to that franchise. And I thought they did a really nice job with it. So I was a big fan of that movie, and I think Craven kind of understood where the genre was going and what he needed to do. And so with working with Kevin Williamson, the scriptwriter, they came up with a fresh idea to kind of bring some life back. It was very meta. We talked about this in one of our reviews not too long ago, some of like the Lost Boys stuff, where there's definitely a sense of knowing in this movie. It was, they talked about somebody that's taken their love of scary movies too far, and they really kind of understood their core audience. I would have been 23 at the time when this came out. I was just outside of that age with the teenagers that they were looking for. But this was still very relevant to me at the time, and it was a great movie. And going back last night and watching it again at the theater, it was fun to have a live audience in that movie again. But it's definitely very much a movie of its time. There are some movies that are timeless that don't get dated by technology of what's going on. But the scenes in this that really do kind of throw it back to you kind of to that movie. It's Billy having a cell phone and that being like this, oh my God, gotcha moment. Like, it's so different than what it would be today. Even just some of the dial-up internet in the video stores, right? All that stuff that really just takes it really right back to that throwback for the mid-90s, but it was awesome. And what a great cast, right? You had Neve Campbell coming off a Party of Five, who was well known. Obviously, the spoiler here, but if you haven't seen it, please go see it first. But Drew Barrymore, who was by far the biggest star of the movie at the time. This is really before Courtney Cox took off in Friends. The male leads in this movie hadn't really done anything yet of any notice. And you saw like Skeet Ulrich, who everyone thought was going to be the huge star. I think Matthew Lillard's obviously had the better career since then, but it was just a really cool launching point. And to see all the female actresses in this movie have really great careers from there was great. Rose McGowan, who was great in this movie, I loved her character. It's just a very well done movie. But what struck me as watching this in the theater again was something that you don't really notice in a lot of horror movies, and I've talked a little bit about it. But it was really the cinematography, the shots that Wes Craven had in this movie, this beautiful California town. It was also, I was looking at it and I started thinking about in 2021 time frames. I mean, this was a rich town, I guess, right? Because these houses were gigantic and gorgeous and overlooking the mountains and the valleys. And some of these shots, I think that first scene where Sydney gets chased, Neve Campbell's character, and she gets the phone call and she falls asleep, and there's just this beautiful long shot of the house in the background, and as it's fading into sunset, and it's absolutely stunning. It's just visually beautiful. It's a very well done movie. There's a relative, a fair amount of gore, but it's not over the top. I remember at the time, I remember it being gorier than it was. There are a couple of, scenes with some evisceration that are pretty graphic, but holistically, it's not an incredibly gory movie. It's just a well-written, very fun movie. And look, there's a lot of dialogue in this movie that I felt didn't hold up very well. There's a few things that the characters say, just some of the terms they use that, again, being not that far outside of that age group, you just wouldn't hear people talk that way. So that was a little bit interesting, but holistically overall, I would say, again, just a great movie. If you haven't had a chance to watch it in a while, again, think about it, it's 25 years old now, it's a classic. Go back and check it out. I enjoyed it a ton, and I think back, again, the highs for me on this movie, so I'm going to give you the highs, the lows, and I'll probably talk about the scariest scene in the movie. So the highs to me would be the change of pace and direction, the meta part of the movie. I think that actually works incredibly well for the movie. The cinematography is great. What Wes Craven does is very, very cool. It just looks great. I would tell you that the acting is very good in this movie as well. You have some really good, believable characters. That relationship between Gale and Dewey in the first movie was so much better than it kind of morphed into in the later parts of the movie. There felt like there was actually some genuine chemistry there, and obviously they got married in real life, so there was some chemistry, but it was very enjoyable. The demerits, again, some of the dialogue feels a little stilted. It's a little bit, forced. It's too cool for its own good, where it's trying to be too cool for its own good. Going back and rewatching the movie, there's definitely a lot of red herrings that, it's not like The Sixth Sense, where I think when you go back and rewatch that movie, it makes you feel like, okay, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on here that, if I'm paying attention, it's rewarding. In this one, the killer's given away pretty easily when you actually go back and rewatch the movie, how some of it's filmed or framed. It's pretty easy to figure out who the bad guys are in the movie. So I would say that would be the pros and cons of the movie. As I think back to the scariest part of the movie, there's a couple of scenes that stand out, but I would actually tell you it has to be the beginning of the movie. That piece with Casey Becker, played by Drew Barrymore, just that whole chase scene. And it's actually very unnerving, when she's on the phone and her parents pick up the phone and they can hear her kind of taking her last gasps of breath, and the mother's just horrified, and then she walks out and just screams. That whole first, 10, 12 minutes of the movie is very tense and very well done, and I would say it is the scariest part of the movie. So holistically, overall, I'm going to give the 25th anniversary of Scream an 8 out of 10. I think this is a great movie. I think it's well done. It changed the genre. It brought everything back. You have all the movies afterwards, like The Urban Legend, I Know What You Did Last Summer, some of the more poor versions of it, like Valentine, right? Some of those movies that weren't great, but it really did reinvigorate the slasher genre and make it relevant again. So, a nice quick bonus review for you. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, like we say, stay scary, and if you haven't done so far, please hit that like and subscribe button. We'll talk to everybody soon.